This is going to be an introspective conversation as we deep dive into discussions about courage, leadership, and community. I will direct a question to one of our panelists, and they can kick it off with an answer. All the panelists will have a chance to answer the same question. Panelists, please don't hesitate to chime in when you feel moved by something you hear, or if it sparks something in you that you just want to get out. Don't feel like you have to take turns. I'm personally very grateful to have such courageous leaders willing to open up in this way. It will be a vibrant conversation, so there will be no time for a Q&A at the end. And with that, our first question, which I will direct first to Dr. Willis, can we please have a quick 1 minute, maybe, intro of what the audience needs to know about you, possibly top 3 things.
Thank you so much, Grace, and everyone for that warm introduction, and welcome to Howard Community College. Unfortunately, I could not be with you all today. I am in California attending a Workforce Development Institute conference, and one of the goals that we are trying to achieve at HCC is to build a new workforce trade center. So this was an opportunity for me to get in with some folks that can help us accomplish that task from the national level. So please forgive me for not being in the audience today. And welcome to my fellow panelists. I can just feel your wonderful, glamorous, all that good stuff vibing on me here. So with that, Daria Willis, president at HCC, originally from Atlanta, Georgia. I am a mother of 3, 18, 10, and 4-year-old kids. I have a wonderful husband at home, and I think the biggest thing that I can say is I'm all for equity, equitable outcomes for our students, and really meeting the needs of our community, not for what we're seeing right now, but in the future. So it has been a blessing to be part of the Howard County community. I'm finishing up my first year at HCC, and I'm looking forward to many, many more as we work together to do some real good work amongst each other for our students, our community, and our nation.
Thank you. Lakey?
Okay. Normally I would hit Daria on the arm.
Lakey, can you use your mic a little bit?
So I am Lakey Boyd, President and CEO of Columbia Association. I am a mother and a wife and a friend and an advocate and an ally. I need to be closer to the microphone. I am too from Atlanta, and that is relevant because I'm a sneakerhead, as is Dr. Willis.
Wearing Jordans today, Lakey. I don't mean to cut into you, but I just wanted you to know.
Where are they? Because I actually have dress shoes on today. I'm no fun. Sweet.
So come on, Lakey, you got to come with it.
And I ain't got nothing for you today. I'm like in a freaking suit, so no fun. Next time I see you, I'll have my Pride sneakers on. So we do bond over that. And I think otherwise in my free time, I love to be outside, moving and doing things. And I love to be in community. It is what fills me up. And I do want to say I see a lot of friendly faces in the room, and a fair amount of the CA team, so yay CA. But just thanks for being here today and being part of this conversation. And Yolanda said at the beginning, I just want to echo that this is meant to be a conversation that is not just today, but it's an ongoing one that has to be held by the community. And I hope that we're igniting that as part of what we're achieving as well.
Tonya Akins, President and CEO of Howard County Library System. I'm just going to sit this right here because I feel it. We always have this very easy connection and banter always, even though we are fairly new, our relationship, yes. Right?
But it
was an immediate
it just fit.
Clicking,
yes,
as you can see. So we always flow together like this, which is wonderful. I kind of live by these 3 Ps, people, passion, purpose, right? I've always just been a people-centered, focused person. And that really fuels and drives my work in the way that I do things. I think that anything can be accomplished with the right people alongside you. I believe in leveraging all of my resources, through that passion and service to people for whatever purpose the community has, right? Whatever thing the community is looking to do, I think that there are resources in the community, assets, to make that thing happen. And that's just what I go about doing. I've had the awesome pleasure to be able to be guided by some very strong women, both in my family and an adopted family community, to kind of guide that so that it doesn't feel like work. It feels like I am in community.
Thank you so much. Next question is multi-part. What is the first time you remember making a courageous choice? How did you know it was courageous, and what impact did that have on you? Lakey, can you kick us off?
Sure.
Just that.
I'm gonna do exactly what Tanya did, because that made way more sense than what I am doing. Gosh. So it might not be the first time, but I'll try and think of an early time. So when I was a kid, I moved a lot. And so I say that and I'll get some nodding heads. So I moved a lot, as in I didn't complete a single school year in one school until I was in 8th grade. So I moved a lot, like a lot. And it was not, it was out of necessity. It was out of being in, poor and not having resources and not having options. So it was not, a military, or that I was from a family that was getting greater opportunity by those moves. So that's relevant because I was the new kid a lot. And I didn't necessarily make my connections then in the way that I tried to positively make them now. So I found myself in many circumstances where I came into a dynamic that was already underway, right? Whether it was in the lunchroom and where you sat, and, we all been there, who was in charge of that table, and, what was happening on the playground, the whole 9 yards. But I distinctly remember being in junior high school and coming into a situation where I had a kid that sat behind me in, I can see her face, in my English class. And he just was never spoken to in a way, in my ever so humble opinion, in what must have been 7th grade, in what I thought was an appropriate way. And he was always just kind of called on last and kind of mocked both by other kids, but even the teacher just kind of was like, oh, do you have something to say? His name was Trevor. And I can remember one circumstance where we were sitting in class, and she said something in my, again, ever so humble teenage opinion that was snarky. And I said, I don't think that that's an appropriate way to talk to students. So I didn't go to a school that I want to believe is how Howard County Public School System works. I was in a school that had teachers that weren't always there for the students. They were there perhaps for other reasons. And I remember saying, I don't think that that's appropriate the way that you're talking to him. And I think everybody, you talk all the time about we have to talk to you respectfully. I think you should talk to us respectfully. And I got sent to the principal's office. And I just remember that feeling in the pit of my stomach. And it happened when I was younger, but I distinctly remember this one where it was happening in the room. And everybody was kind of looking, because she was saying some really rude things to him. And, about his test score and about how he was stupid. And we're all kind of sitting there and we're uncomfortable, and you're kind of like, is this really happening? And it's like, yes, this is happening. And then you have that moment where you kind of look around and are like, somebody should say something, and you realize in my setting, it wasn't going to be the adult in the room. So it just kind of happened. It just kind of, I said it. And it was not new for me, let me be clear, to go to the principal's office in that time of my life. But what did happen was, that is something I draw on all the time. So you feel it in your body. I mean, I think you feel it in your mind, but you feel it in your body, you feel it in your heart, you feel it in your soul. But there is a time when there is a moment, and Yolanda kind of referenced it, where you realize something wrong is happening, and it's happening in front of you, it's happening next to you, it's happening around you, and you're looking around and you're waiting for somebody to say something. And my lived experience is that's generally the feeling in the pit of your stomach that is you being told it's you need to say something. But there are many consequences that can happen because of that behavior. So I think you got to really understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're doing it. But I'd say that's probably my earliest. And then what have I learned from that? Gosh, once you find that voice, you don't give it up. I can tell you that. So that's probably my thoughts. I see you nodding your head over there.
Hey, there, Sue.
Tonya, can you?
Yeah. I also have an early story connected to elementary school. So I've probably told almost everybody in here that I'm a twin. If not, I'm a twin. I have a twin sister named Tanya. So lots of confusion there, like all the time, Tonya and Tanya. And so, of course, and we're fraternal, but we look enough alike where you would know, and we sound exactly alike. So, we used to dress or be dressed the same, hairstyle the same, all of that twin stuff, up until 4th grade. And we would have such confusion in the school that sometimes one of us wasn't on the class photo, or they'd, mark one of us absent because they thought, it was the same name listed twice or something like that. So in any case, by the time we're heading into 5th grade, our parents asked, are we okay with being in separate classes, trying to get us ready for middle school, right? And I was the shy one. Like, that's really hard to believe right now if you met us both, but I was the real shy one. And so I really was nervous about that separation. So we did. We separated, and my goodness, I loved it. Like, it was like people just could look at me. Like, no, really, I could have a conversation without being the twins. I don't know if you know anything about that, or if you have kids, it's like the boys or something like that. But the twins, to be like paired all the time and then have to find your own independence was really something to kind of to move through, right? And to kind of reframe the way people see you and interact with you. And so I learned today, it was in this session, they said your core values are usually framed around the time you're 10 years old. And that was right around that, right? That was right around that time in my life. But I just gained so much confidence from that experience. And so having to make that courageous change that, yeah, I can do this, and then actually grow into that. And then, so this is my proud thing, it's so funny. There was auditions. We were going to do, we belonged to this Black Cultural Experiences group who was doing a production of The Wiz, the Diana Ross version, like the good one, right? Yes. Right? Yes. So, you're trying out for these roles, and
What role?
I was a scarecrow, but I had a talking role as a scarecrow, and I could still sing all the songs, but it gave me the confidence to do that, is what I'm getting to, right? And I didn't necessarily have to have my sister be, right, in the thing with me, right? And so that was like huge. And then I have to throw this other one in because it's so important to kind of the path that I took, my siblings as well. While we were in school, very good students, our mother was an educator herself. We were at a point in elementary school wanting to be tested for GATE or GT. And I will tell you, that was like the worst experience because my mother had to ask and demand and go back and the whole thing, even though like we knew we should be in those classes. And then it was like the experience left my sister and I with such a bad taste in our mouths that then we didn't want to do it, right? So we end up getting getting to be able to take the test, which gives us entrance into the classes, and we decided not to go into the classes. It's like, if it was this damn hard to take the test, like, I don't want to deal with this every day. Like, at 10, like, that is, like, that's a real thing, right? And so we just didn't do that. And I was reminded of that listening to the governor's inauguration speech yesterday about his educational path and the things that we need to tell young people about their abilities and the paths that are open to them. And I'm so proud of Dr. Willis and the things that she is doing to really change things here in Columbia and offer the trade. So I just wanted to put that out there as well.
Thank you. Dr. Willis?
The only thing I can add to the conversation about K-12 is that I had a consistent failing grade in student conduct. I was a very good student academically, but I didn't know how to keep my mouth shut. I often got it was like S and U's. So there was only two that you can get: satisfactory. I think you get excellent and unsatisfactory. I was consistently on unsatisfactory because I felt like I had to run the class. I needed to teach the students. I had finished my work, and I got in trouble about that all the time. So I thought that that's not courageous, but I figured that I don't know if anybody else can feel my pain on that one, but it was a courageous act.
I feel your pain deeply.
But as I think about an early courageous act, I mean, the two that I can think of, I know you asked for one, but I think they are relevant to this discussion on both ends. One from a perspective of being a student who was very driven in high school. And when I was in high school, I had finished nearly all of my credits, I think after, like right before I started my 12th grade year. So I took all the classes that I needed to, and really if I would have attended high school for my senior year, I wouldn't have anything to do. It would have just been air credits that didn't go anywhere. And I really wasn't a fan of high school. I wasn't popular. I didn't have the boyfriend football player. I mean, I thought I was cute, but nobody ever looked at me then. They be looking now, but they weren't looking then. So I didn't want to do anything. So we decided, and I got a letter from Florida A&M that said, hey, we want you to be an early admissions student. And my counselor at the time said that I wasn't prepared to do that and that I needed to just take some classes in 12th grade. And I remember getting so angry about the counselor telling me what I couldn't do, because no one can tell Daria what she can't do. So talked to my mom about it, and we marched right up to the superintendent of schools office and pleaded our case to say, this counselor isn't going to approve me doing this. I don't know why she even has that level of approval, but we had to take it past the principal at the high school and went all the way to the superintendent, and the rest is history. So I thought that was a point that I often think about when we talk about our students in high schools and how there's sometimes this block with high school counselors or anyone that doesn't allow a student to do what they want to do, with their life, especially if it's going in the right way. But I think on the other end of that, probably maybe my most early courageous act was the act of moving. My first big move was to Texas. And I had just gotten a divorce early on from my daughter's dad at the time. And it was during the 2010 recession, and there weren't any opportunities out there for someone who had majored in history. I had a master's degree in history. There was really nothing I could do besides teach. So I had not been given any classes to teach that next semester, and I've got this kid that I have to raise. And I was in Tallahassee, which is 4 hours away from Atlanta, so I was still fairly close to home. And I applied for maybe 30 positions and only got one call back from a school in Houston, Texas. They flew me out, I did the interviews, did all the things, and then they offered the job. And I almost said no to it because I was afraid of just being outside of my comfort zone. I mean, I was born and raised in Atlanta. I've never been more than a few hours away from home. I would go home and visit my mom on the weekends. And really, I didn't have much money. So I remember when I moved, I had all of my belongings in my little 20 whatever something Kia Optima that stopped working a little bit after that. And I got in the car and I drove across I-10. And it's a very long drive from Tallahassee to Texas. Stayed in an efficiency hotel because I was trying to buy a house and trying to scrape up money, and I didn't have anywhere else to stay. And a lady called one day who worked in the college and said, "You can't stay in an efficiency hotel with your kid. Come live in my house." So we lived with her for about a month until I was able to purchase my home and move forward. But I think for me, that was courageous because I was a first generation student to college. I was the first in my family to graduate. And it was the expectation for some that I would stay home and teach in public schools, which there isn't anything wrong with that. But the expectation was that I would stay home. And I wanted more. And I decided, come hell or high water, I'm going to make it work. So I try to encourage our students, especially, that there's a whole world out there. Don't get stuck in one place. If you're going to get the education, the training, the skills, whatever you need, the world needs what you have to offer. So it's been part of my nucleus to encourage our young people to step outside of the box. If you want to move somewhere and give your talents to another place, just make sure you're not that far from a major airport where you can get home when you need to. It was, to be a person who got a divorce, only had a few $100s in her pocket, stayed in an efficiency hotel. And if you've ever been in efficiency, oh my God, it is not the place that you want to be with a kid. But it was some rocky times, and you just have to step out on faith, and it took great courage to do that.
Thank you so much.
I want to tag on to that one.
Yes, please.
So I'm going to empathize on the counselor, right? I mean, and I know there are good counselors out there, so please, I'm not making an edict, but I relate to having the counselor actually look you in the face and tell you that you're not going to amount to anything. And you're all of 16 or 17. I see some of y'all in the back of the room. I notice our younger folks are in the back of the room. But that is goodness, right? I mean, imagine people, that lands in a lot of different ways for a lot of different people. And I think I mentioned already I was relatively angry, just generally speaking. So I was just like, well, you're wrong. And, I too, first generation going to college. And this is back in the day, and I know many of you can appreciate, there was no internet. This was like you had to write away for the college catalogs, and you had to fill out the sheafs of paper to get financial aid. And I don't even have half the information I'm supposed to put on the form. And I can remember one of my ex-stepfathers took me to college, drove me to college. And literally I show up and I've got, bags that are not suitcases, right? I've got, like trash bags I'm moving in with. I had some people that gave me things to have in the room. And he leaves, and it was great that he drove me there. He had not gone to college. He thought it was great that I was there. And I get dropped off, and I literally was just like, I have no idea what is about to happen. And so I would agree that takes a lot of courage to just say, well, let's hope it's better than where I've been, right? And I think that is definitely for me, and kind of what you were saying, what shapes you. I mean, the 10, I'm really winding my own brain on that and where I was at 10. But I think that I do have a predisposition, which I have put together over my career is unusual, that change can bring better. I generally lean to that end of the spectrum. I don't, I know it's not always good, but I generally have experienced it as good because it was every time at least if it was not as bad as. So I think that moment where, he had driven away, because I didn't have a car at college, and I just looked around and went, I don't even really know how I'm going to get from here to there. And it was a very interesting cultural experience for me to even navigate college, and you just kind of sit back and watch people and what they do, and you're like, okay, I guess I should do that. I guess we go to the student union to eat. Oh, wait, I can't afford that, so what am I going to? But I think that those small decisions, even when they get thrust upon you, even just kind of trying to feel your way forward, I mean, that is courage in a very different way. I agree.
Thank you. Anything else you would like to add to this topic? All right. Next question is, failure is an inevitability, and it's part of our being courageous actions. How do you personally get back up and persevere after experiencing those moments of failure? Tonya, can you hit us off?
I reject failure.
That's where I'll start. How to answer this question.
Never
Acceptable. It has never happened to me because I don't frame it that way. Like literally, I really reject failure. So I feel like if I start off on a path, right, or a course or with a goal, and I haven't landed that goal in whatever time frame I had set, and I have to adjust my path, I don't count that a failure. Like, if I've learned something, then I haven't failed. If I can make a course correction, if I can leverage some other thing within my sphere, if I can do something to keep moving, that's just not something that's in my vocabulary. I do not frame it that way at all. So I can't even really respond to that question in the way that you phrase it, because I literally don't think of it that way. So no, I've never failed. I just, that doesn't enter my mind, right? So I think that there are decisions, right? And if I make the wrong one, I've certainly learned something. So why would I count that a failure, right? There are good things, there are opportunities, there are lessons learned, there are connections made, there is something that is birthed out of every action, right? And so if you look at that thing, right, as this new gym, right, that can help with the journey or help with the work or help fuel something else that somebody else is doing, right, then there's something that came of that, right? And so yeah, that's how I look at it. I've never failed.
Wow.
I'm just like seriously.
That is so deeply fulfilling to hear. So what? So ask it a different way, right? Like seriously, something has happened that didn't go to plan.
Yeah.
I mean, 100, right? I mean that happens, but where you felt. I mean, I'm just hypothetically talking here. Like you got face punched and then you were put on the ground and then people stomped all over you and bludgeoned you to the proximity of passing out, but you didn't give up. How about that?
So I would say that they were wrong. No, no, seriously. What I would do is, again, I'm going to look at my approach, right? My execution, my intent, all the things, and because there's something good in there.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
There was I got it. But how do you dig deep in that moment where you're just snap, I got punched? Figuratively.
And it happens.
Figuratively.
It happens. There are, tough, spiky barriers that are thrown at you sometimes, or thrown in the way of whatever it is you're trying to do, stiff opposition, all of those things. I think for me, I know how to encourage myself, and I think that's a skill.
Yes.
It's a learned skill. I share with people a lot that, I think we're all of humble means, stretching that, I was a Head Start student, and I can still remember my Head Start teacher who stayed, who's now passed on, but who stayed in our lives and was friends with my mother for some time. And my Head Start teacher had this mantra, I call it that, the class would repeat along with saying the Pledge of Allegiance. So it was just kind of like this morning routine. And that mantra really encouraged us to believe that we had assets, and she didn't use the word assets, but that there was value in us, and there were things in us that would help us shape the world.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. In Head Start.
Miss Warhop.
I mean, look at you.
Oh, yeah.
What school did you go to? I did not go to that school.
Yeah, well, this is the thing.
That's cool either, honey.
I had
I mean, it's
I had
a
it from Miss
magical
Warhop.
place.
I didn't have
I
it from
remember my
everybody.
teacher.
There were some Black women in our community that formed community and really just became everybody's mama in the community. And my mother was one of those community mamas, right? And I think with the various opportunity, because they know these little black babies are going to get out there and the world's going to try and beat them up, down, and sideways. And it was already happening before we were out there. So you have to be, hopefully, fortified with some things, right? They're going to help you be able to encourage yourself when you're looking out there for somebody to smile back and nobody's smiling back, right? Or you're looking out there for somebody to come alongside and nobody's coming alongside. So when I say I know how to encourage myself, I really do. Like, whether it is, I love music, and then being serious. Like, I listen to it every morning, all the time in the car. Like, I gotta have different ways to encourage myself. I love inspirational quotes. Like, all of those things help me maintain the resiliency, but also, again, getting back to that people, passion, purpose, you asked us in the introduction, like, I live for that. If I would be very unhappy if I couldn't do something with people to help people do their thing, right? And so I just, in whatever space I'm in, whether the job title is changed or the location has changed, look for ways to do that, right? So I think that's it. Like, I just, yeah.
But I love that teased out that story.
Yeah.
It started with the W, I don't remember.
Miss Warhop,
I love her.
Miss Cleotha
That
Warhop.
is so,
was
I mean,
passed on, but
what,
she
I mean,
was
to
amazing.
fill children up at that young age,
Yeah.
that early, and something
Yeah.
that you can still draw on today. I mean, that's
Well, and that's the thing, like,
magical.
everybody has that opportunity, right? So I think, my mother, Miss Warhop, and Miss Brown, Bernadine Brown, who's still alive in Texas, I love you, who just encouraged, really, looked for, created opportunity, right, where there was none, right? That play, that The Wiz, like, Miss Brown got some people together and we put on the play, like, it, and then, like, all of our parents came. Because if there wasn't gonna be an opportunity for kids who could afford to enroll in whatever and then perform on the stage, then they could create that opportunity for us, right? And so I have a lot of stories like that, right? There was a couple, the Pools in our community, an older Caucasian couple that were just amazing, and they didn't have children that I recall, but they wrote a community newsletter, right, at the time where you could actually walk around and, they would take, like, your tips, like, tell us what you did positive, right, and we'll put it up in this community newsletter that would, like, go on everybody's mailbox or fence or whatever. So, like, I was used to seeing my name in the newspaper, like, a long time ago. But it was really a big deal, like, when you're young, and, like, Tonya did this and Tanya did that and Marcus did that, whatever it was. But it was, like, a big deal to encourage this really this neighborhood where there was a lot of underinvestment, right? So I think in those ways, right, I have models of people doing that in my life, of encouraging themselves and others, even if it wasn't something that was already available in community. So I just think that's important.
yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Dr. Willis?
I feel so inadequate now because I really wish that I was as mature as Tonya and all of the wonderfulness about not failing. I was a very, and still am, very cut and dry individual when it comes to success and failures. And I think that started for me in grade school. An A was an A. And that's what I strive for. And if I got anything less than that A, if I got a B, then, I'm going to the teacher trying to figure out what's up, what happened, what did I not do? I remember going through grad school and I think I got a B- in some class about Lenin, Stalin, and Hitler, and I almost used some of the techniques that we read about for those three dictators on my professor, who gave me the B-. But I remember one day my major professor from my thesis program at FAMU, but I was at FSU during the time when I got that B-, and it was my first one in my entire graduate school career. So I was like really, really ticked off. And he said, "So what degree are you going for?" I said, "A PhD, of course." And he said, "Well, who's going to look at your transcript? Because it's expected that if you get anything less than a B in a PhD program, that you're going to have to take that class again." And so he said, "Why are you so focused on that B-? That's not what your dissertation is on. Take it and move on to the next class." And that was really like, okay, forget you, because you already got your degree. I don't know what you're talking about. And even now, I have a very hard time coming up short. And that's something that I need to work on. So I will be very clear with the audience that I haven't reached that point yet. I believe in pushing myself to the point of what I have determined success. And I think it's because as a young, and I'm going to say a Black woman who has been in largely white spaces my entire career, failure has never been an option. Because if you do fail, whatever people say failure is, then they subscribe that not only to you, but everyone who looks like you, who has the traits as you, and you're all of a sudden responsible for everyone in the race and blah, 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 blah. So I have been very careful as to my approach on things and really very hard on myself to ensure that whatever goal or task that is set out for completion, that I do everything in my power to ensure that we are successful. And if I fail, which I believe I have failed in some occasions over my career, I don't take it too well. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm not a perfect individual. I don't have the magic wand, but I don't take it well. However, I think if you're the type of person like me that's a D personality, what's that thing called? One of them, those mental things that you take that says what kind of person you are, DISC assessment. I think that's what it is, yes. It said that I'm a D, but one of the things that I'm blessed with is to have a partner or a spouse who can check me when I start to go down that path of blaming myself, beating myself up, trying to figure out what happened. And he helps me kind of talk through, okay, now what happened? Now why is that your fault? And just break it down. Because I have always been so hyper-focused on success, on the win, on knocking it out the park. And I don't think that's a healthy thing, but it's one that I believe a lot of people suffer from, especially minority women who have to find themselves in spaces that were never meant to be there for them to begin with, who are in spaces where the systems weren't built for them. And so the pressure of perfection and not failing is overwhelming. And it's an area that I still need growth in. I have an executive coach and we talk about it all the time. Why do you feel this way? Well, why do you think that's a failure? Okay, well, if it is, then how can you grow from that? And I do believe that if you don't meet your target or your goal, you always learn something from it. But it's hard to desensitize yourself from not categorizing it as a failure and taking the gas off the pedal a little bit to give yourself some room to breathe and just be that human who makes errors or misjudgments or mistakes or failures or whatever the case may be. So I don't know, I even forgot the context for the question, my bad, but I hope that made sense, that I'm not the best person.
Directly relevant. Everything you said was directly relevant.
Successfully answered. Thank you so much. Lakey?
Okay, so failure. I mean, this is fascinating, and I have another perspective, right? And I think that is what makes it very interesting. I mean, I'm still back on you, and I mean, I just want to go back in your childhood. I have this magical teacher tell me positive mantras. So I would say that my angle, it was more, I was told early and frequently that I was not going to amount to anything. And so all I can really say about that experience is that, and I know we've talked about this in different settings, I mean, I've just always had a hand on my back. There's not a lot of other ways I can explain it. You know, I certainly have a deep faith there as to why I have continued on. But my experience with failure is one, that it does happen, and other people at least going to call it a failure, even if you don't. But I think that I totally am on board with the, you know, you win or you learn, right? And that you haven't really lost anything. So I absolutely agree with the, you know, repackaging of what do you extrapolate from the situation. I had to work on that a lot. But I think in a weird way, and you can definitely kind of have the world, you know, have low expectations of you. And I deeply believe, particularly from the youth perspective, a lot of people live up to those low expectations. So it is why high expectations are so important for me. And we're at least going to reach for them. You know, we're going to aspire for them. Whether or not we reach them does not mean that we're failing. But, you know, figuring out how to repackage what the world is telling you is a failure, either because of your outside package or because you're supposed to have achieved certain things for a society that was not, you know, meant to embrace what you're about, is a long and windy path. And you said the word resilience a little while ago, and I just want to reiterate that. I think it's more, whether it's this big, you know, F on a report card, or whether it's, you know, you failed, or, you know, feeling not good enough for some reason, the thing that I have focused on, and I have a deep well of, but you got to work on refilling it, is the resiliency. So it's less about, you know, is this thing going to happen? I think that my best perspective is go ahead and accept that exactly what you've set out to happen is most likely not really going to happen that way. And if you are already with a mindset, and, you know, we can use all the buzzwords, agility and adaptive and pivot, you just kind of have a pragmatic view that I'm aspiring to this and I know what I want it to look like. But my lived experience is that's going to keep iterating and changing and shifting despite my best efforts. And more importantly, and goodness, has this been hard, and I know, Ms. Daria, it's been hard for you, I can't control other people. I mean, isn't that so hard? I mean, to not be able, what? Oh, I know you look, exactly. To not be able to control other people, all in my orbit to do exactly what I want so the world can be a better place, like that is a frustrating experience. And yet it is life. So I say, and sometimes in a joking manner, sometimes in a very, you know, angry manner, you know, humans, once they're involved, it gets all complicated and messed up and hard. And I'm like, why can't you see what I'm saying? You know, and so that's why the community piece, I mean, that's really a big takeaway to me from what you shared, is that is why it's so important to be surrounded by people that are going to be supportive, whether they know you or not, right? You know, you're all rowing in the same direction. You all are trying for better. You all are thinking about something that's positive. We all have different tools to deliver that. So I will say that it's more about in that moment where it doesn't go the right way, whatever the right way is that you can't control. And I have absolutely, I will own in this room, I have, you know, cried in the shower. I have, you know, closed the door in a dark room and gone, how am I going to show up tomorrow? All of those things are true, and I'll speak for these women and say, yes, we have all had that experience of just like, where do I go from here? Though, too, and people that know me in this room know this, I mean, I throw on some hardcore hip-hop rap and pound away at that, because that is the way that you're going to reframe your life. And remember, It's in there. It's in there. Take the pause, take the breath, but it's in there. And you don't have to do it instantly. There's not some magic time frame for that. But I think the key is when that happens, it's never the end. It's never the end. But digging deep, it takes energy, but it's a muscle. That's what I found. Resiliency is a muscle. The more that you do it, the quicker you can reframe, the quicker you can come back. And then, grace. Give yourself some grace. That matters a lot.
Thank you. Any other thoughts on this subject? Awesome. All three of you came into your positions from places outside of Howard County. What were some of your observations coming into this community? What were some of the challenges you encountered? What should the people here today keep in mind as they pursue their own journeys towards positive change? Dr. Willis, can you kick us off?
First, I got to say, things that make you go, Things that make you go, We're all from outside Howard County. Things that make you go, That's it. Moving on.
That's your answer? Final answer? First off, in any place that you go to, always remember to have an exit plan and strategy. I have learned that early on in my career, because you can go into a community with the best intentions, but anytime I go in, and it's hard to think about it, but I think about the end at the beginning and what I want the end to look like. But if the end doesn't go the way I want it to go, then I need to be able to have an exit strategy. And I say that only because I've got 3 kids and a whole household that I'm responsible for. So I cannot afford to not think about those things. And I was thinking about that as we moved from Washington State to Maryland, when we moved from New York to Washington, or Texas to New York. That was always in the back of my mind. And I've always said to myself, if this doesn't go the way I need it to go, that's okay, because I know I can land somewhere else. And when you have that as your center, to me, there's a freedom in it, because my identity is not tied to a particular organization. My identity is tied to who I say I want to be and how I'm going to fulfill my purpose in life. So when I came to Howard County, I just have to say my first impressions was, oh my God, I have never been in a place so clean. And when I came for my interview and such, I don't recall seeing a speck of anything on the ground. The college was just beautiful. Went out to the community and saw some different places, and just, you really get this sense of community, I thought, when I first came here. And I've never been in a planned community before. So that was definitely a shocker for me. I said this, I was in a panel discussion this morning presenting at this conference. I said, but the problem that we have in Howard County is one that I've never experienced anywhere else. Because when I was in Texas or Florida or Washington or even New York, each of those communities that we were in always talked about the workforce, always talked about skill training. There was never really this tension between the training piece versus 4-year transfer, go off and become some ivory tower person or whatever that looks like. I've never been in a place where there's this tension with the affluence that you have in the community, coupled with, yes, we have this affluence. Yes, U.S. News and World Report rates us as these things. However, the real Howard County is over here, and it's hard to surface that and acknowledge it. So, like if I look at the college, for example, there are a few programs where we've gotten really big grants, like a Title III or anything of that nature, where they give you multi-million dollars because you have to show the need. And you've got to be able to demonstrate that need. And it was easy doing it in Houston. It was easy doing it in Syracuse. It was even easier to do it in Everett, Washington, because we weren't as affluent as it is here. So you've got to be able to carve out in language and use different ways to describe the true need that we have with our population. So I think from my vantage point, it's a beautiful thing and it's a curse at the same time, especially looking through the lens of the work we do at community colleges. And the blessing in it is I really thought that I would have an issue with community members not holding on to this message for workforce. But when I can't remember the first time I said it in an open setting, and I said, we need a workforce and trade center, I was stopped by, so I couldn't even make it to my car. Because people were like, oh my God, I'm so glad someone has finally said it. This is something that we've needed in our community for so long. But before I said it, I was all nervous. I was sweating. I was texting my husband, like, I don't know how these people are going to take this message, but this is what they really need to know and all of the things. So it's been great that people are embracing that message. But I don't want it to be in a sense where it's too little too late. You can have all the affluence on the planet, but if your people aren't graduating, if your people aren't finding not just decent work, but career wage earning jobs or careers where they can take care of their families, then pretty soon the rest of the world is going to leave you behind. And so I'm thinking about, yes, how do we balance the Jim Rouse vision versus what we're seeing today versus the change that's happening, and making sure we're not so reactive in our strategies, but much more proactive in how we approach poverty and homelessness and people without food to eat, and our students who are literally couch surfing from one friend's couch to the next, or the fact that we have foster youth who can't afford to even live in the county and they're going to other community colleges outside of us, or the fact that we have students who don't come to us because we don't have the workforce and training programs, or the fact that pretty soon, probably within the next 2 years, half of our student population will be on some sort of financial aid, some sort of Pell Grant eligibility where they have to get somebody else's support, or the fact that our food pantry is probably one of the most frequented spots on this campus, not only for our students, but some of our employees who we're trying to raise up and make sure that they're getting paid equitable wages. So, but that's not the story that we hear, or that's not the scene that you see when you get off the plane and you come to this wonderful community. And that's what I'm trying to surface. And I think we can do that together and make sure that we're serving the needs of our entire population.
Thank you.
Yes,
snaps for Dr. Willis.
there were like so many nodding heads while you were talking, just so you know.
I can barely see, but thank you.
Lakey, can you continue?
Yes, well, I do have to go back to your opening comment, which is how clean everything is. And that is, of course, because of Yay CA. You're welcome.
Thank you,
You're
CA.
welcome. You're welcome. I think all of us have had this discussion coming from different places, and it is so clean. And that is a team that is out there every day doing the work, and not everybody thinks about it, kind of starts to almost take it for granted, right? So I think it's always important to celebrate that work. Okay, Howard County, from the outside, arriving and being here. What a path. Thanks for making a Okay, I'll stop. Okay, so my move, and we're going in reverse order. So Daria is the newest, I'm in the middle, and Tonia's the longest. So from the outside looking in, and I, similar to Dr. Willis, went through a national recruitment process, national search. I am a city planner by educational background, so that's relevant because I at least knew what Columbia was. I had a concept of what CA was, as unusual as it is in the nation. and certainly had experience in master plan communities. I will say that, we are from Atlanta. We had been in Birmingham, Alabama for my husband's job. That was one of those, working couple agreements of we'll see if this works. It was not going to, and then COVID happened, and that was like, woo, for sure it is not going to. So we had targeted this area and knew that we wanted to make a change, and one of our top, so again, this is, previous president, COVID is hitting, being in a place where science wasn't real, that is like really, bone rattling as an experience. So shared values was very high on our list. Shared values of feeling like we were moving into a community, one, community, and two, that you could tease out that there was an intentionality about it. So I'm not talking about the physical layout, I'm talking about the actual community and how people come together. And certainly going through the process and, the, really fat, long, whatever dozen-page, package that was put together about the opportunity was, wow, not only does this exist, but on top of that, there's this special organization that is really there to ensure that a quality of life around community is in place and is nurtured and stewarded forward. So, yeah, it was a great opportunity, and then I arrived. And then there was a lot of work to do, right? I mean, it is a very large organization. It is a very complex organization in terms of operations. We were emerging from COVID, so I got here right kind of as everybody's immunizations were hitting, full steam ahead. And it really was a question that all of us have faced, as leaders. How does your organization, goodness, we're not emerged from the pandemic, but how do we keep figuring out what this next chapter is, this next normal is? So here's what I have found in Howard County. I have found certainly in a large organization that, I'm speaking of because it is very purposefully the backbone in many ways of this community. It was created at the time in concert with the community. A team that is amazing, a team that is doing the work, a team that is dedicated and committed, and even longtime team members ready for what's next and how do we iterate and pivot and evolve. I have largely found a very welcoming community. And that is, as someone that not only has moved before, not just from childhood, but, as an adult, combined with having done consulting in my career. So just that idea of you can come in and people don't really want you there even though you got an invitation. So I have found openness in both of those places, which I think has been deeply fulfilling. But I'll echo definitely what has already been said. As I made that direct connection to community, both just as a citizen and neighbor and parent, in the school system, as well as professionally, I quickly found that there is still a very disconnected community here. So we can, whether you want to call it pockets or silos or, parts of town, what it really means is that I realized a lot of people had not been heard, had not been seen, certainly were not being served, and I found others that did not want to talk about it, did not want to, frankly, just even believe it was true, not here, that's not here. And I think that what I have found is that there are people here that are ready for that. They are ready to have that conversation. They are ready to make that connection. They are ready to make that change. And I hope and I believe that there are enough of us to do that. And, as was already said early on, we've got to connect to each other to do that successfully in existing organizations and institutions, but just as regular folk that are, neighbors and parents and community members. And I think one of the things that I struggle with here, and particularly I think matters for, what is in the future, is the way that connection is made is not a one-time event. So I have said this, more than once since I've been here. Community takes vigilance. And I think, and I've heard so many stories, and they, are lovely, about people that came here very early, went to the Welcome Center, picked out their spot, on a map, moved their family and have been here. And they talk so much about, going to the mailbox and going to the Village Center, and their kid took a class here, and then, of course, the, summer swim league. But those aren't things that, you can make a checklist and just do. You have to actually show up. And first, you got to show up, and then second, you got to actually, talk to other people when you show up. And not the people you already know. And if you only know everybody, then maybe you should be inviting some other people to the party. And once you invite the other people to the party, you have to actually talk to them and invite them in and make them part, right? So this is the whole spectrum. How do you get from diversity, inclusion, all the way to belonging? But I think that is so difficult for some people that like the comfortableness that is this community. They like that they already know their neighbor, and I already know your name, and I already, have known you. Maybe I even knew your parents too. So I think that I wouldn't call it an openness to change. I would just call it a genuine evolution, right? It's one of the points of pride of this community to me is this self-identity of progressiveness, of seeing themselves as progressive in the Jim Rouse story. And, I deeply, built on purpose for a purpose. That was incredibly progressive at the time, right? This was before the Fair Housing Act was officially passed. Not that that suddenly changed, what was true in America. But that identity, some people in here that are on my team have heard me say this. There is in the archives, and I'm sure you've seen it in many things, an old Time magazine cover, Jim Rouse on the front of it. And it's, ta-da, the next city in America. And my North Star, my vision is, what are we doing here in Columbia and, de facto Howard County to make sure that we're on the front of Time magazine for being progressive today? That's the question we should be asking ourselves. Not how did we do it back then and look at what we did. My measuring stick goes forward. And I think that understanding that you're building on history and you're building on foundations and you're building on shared values. But I think that the shared values I saw from the outside, I largely still absolutely believe and have lived are true here. But I think that this community is at a, dare use the word tension. We are lifting up a tension to the surface that is not new. I'm going to tell you, I've worked lots of places in America. It's not new. It's more, how do you come to that conversation? And I think the only way we can come to that conversation is by coming in and saying, I don't have all the answers and it's not already done. How do we do it better together? So I hope that's what the future of Howard County is. Yeah.
So just echo so much of what they said. In saying I echo so much of what they said. I was also the product of a nationwide search for the best library system on the planet. Right?
But wait, that makes you the best librarian on the planet.
Right? But with that, seriously, the board had a serious task at hand in who was going to replace my predecessor. Who actually had enough to bring to a system that is already the best on the planet, and what in the world could they do, right, to scale that system up, to meet our community expectations, all of those things. So the board at that time had gone out for a search and didn't hire anybody, and then went with another recruiter, and then I was in that second round. And so I remember vividly having like so many questions about community. Like I have like hardly any questions about the role because I was doing the role in another community, right? So I remember somebody asked, like, do you have any questions about the job? Well, I do have this other question about community, because same thing, like, right, we've got a family, right? We're moving over here. Like, I want to know what the community values are. I want to know who I can serve alongside. I want to know, what things this community stands for and will want to move forward. And so that was just an amazing conversation. And same thing, like I hit the ground, and this is a true story. We arrive ahead of our truck, so we didn't have all of our things. But we pull into the driveway of the house that we were renting at the time, and there was a neighbor at the community mailbox, and she pulls into the driveway. She says, "Hello, are you the new neighbors?" And I said, "Well, yes, we are." It was like a little taken aback. Like, I haven't even turned step foot in the door yet, but it was like wonderful, just big, beautiful smile. And so we introduced ourselves. Still is one of the best connections in town. Judy, thank you, Judy. Judy Smith.
Wait, that was my first neighbor was not Judy Smith. I'm just saying.
My first contact in Howard County was Judy Smith. Judy, and if you know Judy, she always has that smile, right? So in any case, she comes over, she welcomes us to community. We get in the house, and we're tired and we have nothing to lay on, so we're just sitting on the floor because our stuff isn't here yet. And there's a knock at the door. And so my husband gets the door, and then I hear him calling out, "Hey, honey, come meet the new neighbors." And I'm like, I'm exhausted. But there were people at the door that were bringing over things for us because they knew that our stuff wasn't there. Right? Who does that? Thank you, Fred and Clary. So they come over with like pillows and blankets and silverware. I had the whole, I've never had that happen in my life. And this is a true story. Like they come over with the things, right? And so that was like the best welcome you could ever have to a place, right? And so I just want to say that. And so I've continued to meet people who give of themselves, right, is what I wanted to say with that. Like Columbia is filled, Howard County is filled with people who give of themselves. And that is a beautiful place to be, right? I think that, in the library system, I certainly see that as well. And the challenge there, to your question, was, we're already great. How can you make us even better? Why do you want to change anything? Because we're already great, right? So what I did was, I said, you are great, right? Let's acknowledge that. Like, we're all great. Like, it's true. Our mission is high quality public education for all. So first thing I asked my team is, how do we know we're serving all?
Ooh, things that make you go,
Like, is that our assumption? Like, how do we know, right? And so that was like a real thought-provoker, conversation starter, tension filler, all of those things. And that's something we continue to work through, but that really has changed the way we look at our service to community when we look at our mission, not assuming because we are a public library, our services are free and anybody can walk through the door. Like, what's our intentionality about creating programming, collections, classes, author events, all of these things that speak to this diverse community, that make you want to say, whomever you are in community, that are just as important as anybody else in community, that this library belongs to me too, right? That these classes, that these events, that this collection speaks to me too, right? That I feel welcome and engaged, right, when I walk into the branch, right? There's something for me, right? And so that has been the work, right? In all the ways that you see our service evolving, right? Adding mobile outreach. We were looking, and I remember I see several folks from my communications team here early on. I was looking at I think the first annual report that we were going to put out. I'm looking at the draft. And I said, I need some more pictures of people of color. Right? And so, and I knew it wasn't that our team wasn't just not doing it. The problem was there weren't enough people of color in our spaces. And not many people would believe that, but that was true, right? And so if you look back to some of our earlier work and you look forward, just look through our Flickr history, right? You can see that getting more diverse, like more reflective of our community. Like that's important, right? So it wasn't that we were choosing these photos. No, there weren't any other photos to choose, right? And so that tells us, even in that observational data, the photos, right, that we weren't serving all, right? And so trying to get to that has really been the work. And I'm super deeply grateful for the team that has dug into that work, because it was not easy, is not easy. It is a shift in the way that you take on the work, that you think about it, that you analyze it, that you prepare for it, and all the ways that you engage community, the conversations that you have, the lesson plans that you're used to doing, all of it is a shift, but it's been so meaningful. I see Katie DeSalvo Thronson back there, and I remember pre-COVID, Katie and one of our colleagues, Brooke, were going out to community, right? So when you engage community, especially community that maybe hasn't been engaged before. And that's exactly what they heard. Nobody's ever asked me, right? Nobody's ever, from the library, nobody's ever asked me. And by the way, you have these collections, but they really don't reflect my community, even though they're supposed to. Those types of things, right? That is huge and a little bit embarrassing, honestly, right? So to really correct that, or at least attempt to make some big strides in how we do that, in how we train our staff, right? The conversations that we have with staff, even making sure that our staff are really in relationship with one another, right? There's some members of my senior team. I have this little beach ball. They all used to cringe. They laugh at it now, but they really did cringe. Because I could realize that they really, even though some of them have worked with each other more than a decade, really didn't know each other, not really, right? So I would do what I call thumb ball at the start of our meetings, right? And I would have these 6 questions, and I've got a different number on each color of this little beach ball. And I'd just toss it to somebody, and wherever your thumb lands, you got to answer that question. Really simple thing. Are you a morning person or an evening person? Coffee or tea? Whatever it is, right? Just so you can get to know somebody, because they really didn't understand each other and their work styles, because we're all so busy and focused on the work. And the work is important, but you got to know the person, right, if you're going to be really effective and be in relationships. So I would say those were some of the challenges and some of the opportunities and things that we continue to move forward.
Thank you so much. Any final thoughts on this question that sparked anything?
I mean, other than how impressive these women are,
Right?
obviously. It is very, I guess, both heartwarming and fulfilling to just hear.
Lakey, can you talk into the mic? Thank you.
Yes, I can. I just wanted to quickly say, I think it is just to take a moment. I mean, a lot of people in this room need to hear this, I'm sure, as part of why you might have showed up today. I mean, sharing space like this together, I have felt ridiculously fortunate in part of my story here to have connected. I remember I connected to Tonya very early. And it was not because she was on my checklist, because trust me, I had a checklist of who I had to go meet, because I was the fancy new CA president. I was like, I ain't that fancy. Where are people at? That's where I want to go. Where's some good food? You can imagine that went over. But I connected to Tonya early because I saw the Brave Voices, Brave Choices in my library. I'm a hardcore library person. Grew up, Tonya has heard my story. I mean, have a deep place in my childhood. So I saw that work and I was like, well, this is amazing. I need to find out more about this. And that's how we ended up. And then I think our first meeting was like, we went way,
We're late
blew
for the next
past
meeting.
our schedules. We're like, and then we looked and we're like, uh-oh. Started texting, our assistants and saying, wait, we're late. And then Daria, I remember, well, I just thought it was awesome. I was in her interview process. The community had a role in the interview process. And I remembered her interview and just thought she seemed, really dynamic and fun. And I reached out early and I said, hey, I hadn't been here that long. And I see you're from the ATL, so that's something. And I think we might have some things we want to chat about once you get maybe a month or two into your job. Call me. And so we met up, and I remember we were sitting right outside on this quad. And we were supposed to be in some official room somewhere. And both of us were like, let's go outside. Like, this is a nice day. Why don't we go outside? And I think very quickly, connected around that authenticity. And I think just the opportunity to have these, amazing leaders. I feel very fortunate to be here at the same time. I can't imagine not having them as part of the work that I'm trying to do, because change and courage, you need people, and you need people locally. I have a great network personally. I have a great network professionally across the country, but you need people that are right here that really understand, the details of the locality. So anyway, I just want to say those things.
Right back at you.
I think the final thing I'll say on
to have this kind of sisterhood, professional sounding board, all of those things is, absolutely invaluable. I think that, again, community, putting it back, because you can lift up all the things you want to lift up. Like if there wasn't a community that was responsive and supportive of Brave Voices, Brave Choices, if there wasn't a community that wanted to engage in that and help build that, right, then it wouldn't be what it is right now. Would not be half as impactful. So thank you to all of you. I think that I've been, continue to be just so grateful for a board that does for me what I do for my team, right? So I allow my team to operate in their passion, in their area of expertise. And I see one of my board members here. They allow me to do that, right? It is difficult to move something if you don't have that. And so I appreciate you. And I've, of course, now that I've been here, came in 2018, so I've had, the change of board members, and I actually at President Willis's ball, her first ball,
That was a fancy ball.
It was a fancy ball. It was beautiful. But I saw one of the board members who was on the board that brought me to the county, and he said, I feel like this is the most important thing that I've done for Howard County was to bring. He did. I know.
Look at you.
I know. But but I say all of that not to make it about me, but about his service and commitment and how seriously he took the role that he had before him, right? And then to be able to let go and allow me to, right, work with my team to be able to deliver some amazing things for Howard County. And I'm just so grateful for that. So thank you to all of you.
Thank you. And Dr. Wills had a really nice tuxedo at her ball.
Yes, she did.
Yes, she did. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it didn't work out, so I had to go get a tux. But I think my closing comment on this is a really special place, Howard County, and I doubted whether or not I was even fit to apply for the job. That's how much I held this county up in such great esteem. I really did. And coming here, I didn't have the Tonya experience of the neighbors. Well, they did come, but I don't talk to neighbors. I just, I just don't. I love y'all. I'm not as mature, I guess, as Tonya. And I don't talk to neighbors for really specific reasons. I remember when we moved to New York, we bought our house, and one of the neighbors knocked on the door and was surprised to see who had just purchased the home. And the first question they asked was, do you live here? Are y'all the movers? Can you ask the people who own this house to come to the door? But my husband is much better at those aspects. So when the neighbors started coming, when we moved into our rental, and now when we moved into our other home, the home we're in now, he handles all of the niceties and everything that comes with that. I just know my boundaries. So Tonya, I wish that I had that, but I did have a college that stood behind me because we moved in when it was cold and there was a storm and our stuff was still left on the West Coast, and it didn't come for another 2 to 3 weeks, and the college was just gracious and kind. And I remember when the board chair found out that we were sleeping on mattresses in the rental, he very subtly called, and he wasn't pushy, but he kind of said, so we're not going to have our president sleeping on the floor. So that was just, again, one of those moments where I say it's a really special place. But special places require special attention, and they require all of us to work together to keep it as that beacon of hope and a light that we know it is and can continue to be. And so I just encourage the audience and those who you are affiliated with to build your networks and be the change. And I know it sounds funny, but be the change you really want to see. You know, I fundamentally believe that if in every community you have people that are doing the work, because in April Ryan's book, Black Women Will Save the World, she says that courage is in short supply. And to some extent, I certainly do believe that. We have people who, for political reasons or for money reasons or whatever, will not step outside of that box to do a courageous act for another. We need more of that. And in an age and a time where you're seeing diversity funding being pulled away from higher educational institutions in states like Florida, for example. You see that you have governors who are saying that certain names can't be part of state documents and things of that nature. It's a really scary thing, and history tends to repeat itself, and there's nothing new under the sun. So it's a fortunate, I'm just really blessed to be in Columbia, although I think that we have a lot of work to do to keep moving forward, and your leaders need your support because we can't do it alone. And honestly, we're not the foot soldiers out there making it happen. Tonya, Lakey, myself, we have amazing teams that drive it forward. We just provide the vision, and the vision that's set by our Board of Trustees members. So it's just been a wonderful ride, and I can't wait to see what the future holds.